We are now going to take a peek into a class in which the teacher has been working with the students on the 3 basic talk moves: turn and talk, repeat back, and say more about that. The teacher asks probing questions, and the students stay with the teacher, answering in full sentences, using mathematical language, and so forth. So one of the things to pay attention to in this clip are the dynamics that show evidence that students are used to turning and talking and used to working on mathematical dialogue. For example, the teacher focuses on meaning making, explaining your thinking, and the students respond in full sentences. The students know who to turn and talk to and immediately turn to a partner when asked. They talk about the subject at hand. They are able to ask each other to repeat something or to say they don't understand something. So there's an environment of safety, and there are basic moves that are already in play and evidence that they have been in play for some time. The lesson itself is based on area and perimeter coming out of a unit in investigations in number, data, and space, the curriculum materials being used in the district. Like all the other clips that you'll see, I've never worked with this teacher before. We had a couple of email exchanges. We co-planned the lesson prior to doing the lesson. We co-taught the lesson, which is a little bit different than what you've seen so far. And she's launching the lesson. She is working with these 1-inch tiles. The thing to pay attention to here is, even though the lesson is really well explained in the unit, the teacher has adapted the lesson considering who the kids are in her class, what they understand, what they've worked on before. So previously they've worked on finding area of a two-dimensional object, or they have found the perimeter of that. In this case, they're finding area and perimeter of rectangles that are provided on worksheets. The thing that I'd like people to really pay attention to is that no matter what book you're using, it is not the book that creates and crafts a really rich lesson. It's the teacher. The teacher needs to understand what the mathematics is, what the big ideas are, what her students might do, the range of things that kids might do. And in order to know that, it's a really great idea to solve the problem yourself with colleagues, so you can see how other colleagues go about addressing the problem. And this helps you predict what the students are going to do. Because ultimately, you have to make that lesson accessible to all students and challenging for those who are ready for a challenge. And I think this teacher's on her way to doing that. So see if you can recognize some of these different things that are going on, evidence of talk, evidence of planning, that are inviting to the students to think about what it is they're working on.
Well, I wonder what happens to area and perimeter when I put 2 color tiles together. Can you turn and talk with your partner and see what you can tell me about area and perimeter?
I'm going to draw it over here so that we could actually take more
Perfect.
time.
Okay. Here's an eraser too. Markers down here.
Thanks.
Bum, bum. I would love to know your thinking. Braden, what can you tell me about these 2 shapes put together?
They're congruent.
Beautiful.
Ah. What does that mean, congruent?
Same shape and same size.
Same shape and same size. All right. What else can you tell me about this with regard to area or perimeter?
That if you, like, even if you turn it or slide it or flip it, it'll still be the same
Ah, the same what?
shape.
Mm-hmm. Tell me something else. I wonder who can help my friend Braden out here. Braden, excellent thinking. Mackenzie?
That perimeter is 6 because there's 2 ridges on the top, 2 ridges on the bottom, and an edge on that side and an edge on that side, but you wouldn't be counting the inside because it's
Can somebody repeat what my friend Mackenzie just said? Ellen, can you repeat what my friend Mackenzie just said? Oh, then what should you say?
Can you please repeat that? The perimeter is 6 because there's 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom, and those are an inch, and then there's an inch on that side and an inch on that side, but you wouldn't be counting the inside because perimeter is the outside.
All right, Miss Evelyn, can you repeat what she said?
Here's a picture to help you think about
Okay.
it.
I don't know if it's a
Well, let's see if you can think about it yourself,
Yeah.
okay? So we're thinking about perimeter. She said she thinks the perimeter is 6. Do you agree with her? Why?
because there's 2 squares put together, so there's 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, because there's 2 lines up top, 2 lines on the bottom, 2 lines on the side.
Yeah. Yeah, is that what you said? You were thinking exactly like she was.
Brilliant minds think alike.
So one of the things that's really interesting in this clip is when the student says that she didn't hear what one of the other students had said, and the teacher turns to her and say, "What are you supposed to do when you can't hear?" And the student then says, "Could you please repeat what you said?" So it's clear that the student knows what to do, but she chose not to do it. And this is not unusual because learning to ask for someone to repeat something is an unusual behavior in most classrooms. And it takes practice, and the teacher has to hold students to that practice. So that's an additional talk move that we have not spoken about before, but it goes back to the idea of students taking responsibility for their own learning. So the one who's speaking has to speak up, and the one who can't hear has to say, "Please speak up." And getting that to keep happening and not doing it for kids is a very important thing for teachers to do. Some of you may be wondering about the move that I made. I stepped in when the teacher was teaching and when the exchange was going on between Ellen, the little student who said she couldn't hear, and then later said she didn't understand. One of the things about repeat back is you don't want kids to keep repeating back for the sake of repeating back. The purpose of repeating back is to hear something again, to make sense of it. If the student's still not making sense of it, the bigger purpose is to make sense of what's going on. And I think my move at that point was to invite Ellen to think for herself, to look at the picture and say, what do you notice here? What do you think the perimeter is? Express your reasoning. Turns out her reasoning was the same as the students prior to her. So the student might have been a little nervous with a camera or a second person speaking to her. Whatever the reason, she was able to then step up to the plate and name the thinking. You also may be wondering, how did the teacher feel when I stepped in? In content coaching, which is the model of coaching that I use, we co-teach lessons. Prior to the lesson, we make agreements about how comfortable the teacher would feel if I stepped in, how I should know when to step in, should I give her a signal, and so forth. This teacher was very comfortable with co-teaching my stepping in and out of the lesson. And like I said, that was agreed to ahead of time.